Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Hiscox. Go to hiscoxusa.com/smallbiz for your business insurance needs. And by GoToMeeting. Sign up for GoToMeeting today by using promo code START to begin your free trial.
Hey, today on the program, Travis Kalanick, serial entrepreneur and co-founder and CEO of Uber, is with us. Tyler's going to drop us some insights, and the Daily Muse is in the studio. All that and more right now on This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. It's another This Week in Startups. I'm back from Vegas, and I've got an amazing guest on the program. Travis Kalanick is with us. He's an old friend and the CEO and co-founder of Uber. Welcome to the program, Travis.
Thanks.
Good to have you here. Yeah. Hey, if you want to join the TWiST list and become a producer of the show, go to twistlist.co. There's plenty of levels, anywhere from $200 to $200 a month, and you get access to all of the show producers, and you help pick who the guests are. And Travis is one of those guests that people kept saying, hey, get the guy from Uber on, get the guy from Uber on. He's really smart. And we did. Another thing I want to, hey, how you doing, Tyler?
Good, how you doing?
Good. How was your weekend?
How was Vegas?
Vegas was nuts. My friend of mine is having, had a birthday party.
I know
this is the new thing.
I know the guy.
40th birthdays are like the new weddings or something. Like every guy going through a midlife crisis has to have a 40th birthday party. And it has to be over the top and, whatever. So I show up at this thing, and it's like I'm sitting next to some guy, and it looks vaguely familiar. Hey, do I know you? No, whatever. What's your name, Mike? Oh, I'm Jason. I don't know where you live. Oh, I live in L.A. and New York. Blah, 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 blah. So what do you do for a living, if you don't mind me asking? And he says, I'm a musician. And then I start thinking, this guy looks a lot like Mike D from the Beastie Boys. And I said, you Mike D from the Beastie Boys? And he said, yeah, I am. And I said, oh, Brass Monkey, that funky monkey.
You started singing Brass Monkey.
I started singing Brass Monkey. Well, I figured that was the appropriate thing to do. So embarrassing. But anyway, he's a really nice guy, a really interesting, cool guy. I was teaching him how to gamble.
He was on Ian's show like 2 weeks ago.
He was on Ian Rogers' show, yeah. And so I was teaching him how to gamble. He's never gambled before. I was like, oh, you haven't gambled? And so his wife was like looking like, I'm like, oh, come on. So then we started gambling on whose plate would come next. So we started betting $100 on whose carpaccio would come next, then $200 on the entree, and then we're betting. Now we're up to $400 on the dessert to see whose plate would land first.
Yeah.
Were you guys at the $9.99 buffet?
No, we were not.
Because don't they bring the plates out together? Like
right. No. But this is a 40-person, 50-person table.
Got it.
So it's not like it's going to be fine dining, Gordon Ramsay. They're all going to like land simultaneously. This was like random, but it was good. I cleaned up on the entree bet, which was an important bet to clean up on. Hey, here's something else that's actually really cleaned up the whole meeting space online. GoToMeeting. Easiest way to hold unlimited meetings for one flat rate. They just launched their HD Faces product, and it is killer. We've actually started using it here on the program. You may have noticed we're not using one of those other products that has free video conferencing because, frankly, it's not in HD. And now it's super clean, and we sent these like Logitech 1080p, $60, $70 cameras, because the one in Apple's products, it's not the best camera. So you can buy I don't know when they're going to upgrade this to HD, but I don't think it's HD. It's like SD. And boy, does it look beautiful. Go ahead and sign up and get the highest resolution in the industry. Use the promo code START, and you'll get a free 30-day trial. If you're going to do meetings, just use GoToMeeting because it's professional and stable. It works on any platform, including the iPad and all these other devices. GoToMeeting. What a great sponsor of the program, and thanks to them for supporting independent media like this. Shows like this just simply wouldn't exist if it wasn't for sponsors who had the vision to support them. And as you know, I only allow people to sponsor the program if I, in fact, use their product or Tyler, and in most cases both. And GoToMeeting is one of those products that we've used for years to, from the TechCrunch 50 days all the way down to launch days, every week, different startups, angel investing. It's all on GoToMeeting, and it all works seamlessly and awesomely. Travis Kalanick, one of my oldest friends in the industry. I met him in 1997 or 98. I cannot remember which. 98. And at the time, I believe it was your first company.
Yeah.
was Scour.
It was my second.
Was it your
It was
second?
my first tech company.
Ah.
My first company was a SAT prep company.
An SAT prep?
Yeah, I started.
That was your first entrepreneurial activity?
That's right.
How old were you when you started the SAT prep?
18.
18?
Yeah.
Why on earth did you feel compelled to start a company at the age of 18?
I mean, I didn't feel like compelled to start a company. I was tutoring SATs. The first person I tutored went up by 400 points.
Oh, wow.
And I was tutoring everybody in the neighborhood. And then one of the fathers said, let's start a company. So I created the course. I hired the teachers, trained them, and did the like 1,500 and over course.
The 1,500 and over course?
Yeah.
So that was
this when it was on a 1,600 basis.
Sure, 800, 800.
Yeah.
Now, this is before they had the written essay on it.
That's right.
And so you created the editorial device of 1,500 or better. Explain why you created that device.
Well, it was just the guy I started the company with was he was basically the father of one of the kids I was tutoring. He was a Korean guy.
Right.
And he did all of his marketing through the Korean church. And so we had a school of like 300 kids, all from the church. Like it was like he did all the marketing, like got these kids in. And man, they were aggressive about getting the best scores.
Right.
And so 1,500 and over is like, that's the elite.
Right.
And I love it. Like that's what I'm all about too. So let's go.
So breaking down the construction of the company, really two critical things you learn there, I'm guessing. One is branding is critical. So the 1,500 or better just instantly makes this aspirational kind of brand. And you figured out distribution and marketing, which was you found somebody who could distribute the product.
Well, so here, I did the 1,500 and over course. That was the one I taught, and I trained all the other teachers.
Right.
The school was called New Way Academy.
New Way.
New Way. It was like, it wasn't a great brand. It was just like,
Right.
and it didn't need branding because all the kids in the church went, like they
It was
would
viral.
leave church and go to the school. I mean, it was like.
But you did pick a market segment to service
Yes.
that really wanted the product. And you gave them a goal.
The product, fair enough.
Yeah.
But the product was basically, in that way, the product was me, right? Is that the teacher in an SAT prep school is everything. It's the teacher, and then it's the content, but teacher even more than the content.
Right.
And
so what do you just did really well on standardized tests when you were a kid?
Yeah.
What did you get on the SATs? What was your best score?
1580.
1580?
Yeah.
Was that like an official test, or was that like when you were in a practice session?
That's like official.
Official, you have a certificate of 1580. One question wrong.
It would be like 2 questions wrong on verbal. I'd always ace the math.
Right. And that is the secret to the SATs, at least previously when we took it, which was the math is a finite amount of information, whereas the verbal is an almost infinite amount. Not infinite, but it's 10 times larger corpus.
You know what? Look, your head is either left brain or right brain.
Right.
If it's left brain, you just kill it. I could get a 30-minute math section done in 8 minutes, no problem. You put me on the verbal, and my shoulders would hurt, my neck would hurt. I'd take the entire 30 minutes, and I'd be stressing.
Right, interesting.
But like math, I would just be like filling in bubbles.
Now, the second business you started was Scour.
That's right.
What was Scour?
Okay, so Scour was a peer-to-peer multimedia search engine. It was basically the first peer-to-peer app out there. Right. The first way to find music, video, movies, images online, period. It was started in '97, and actually it was a group of us. There were a group of guys. We were all sort of computer science undergraduate association over at over at UCLA. The first URL was scour.cs.ucla.edu. We would basically crawl people's shared Windows directories.
Yep.
And index the files.
Right.
You would search for Britney Spears or whatever. You'd get your results. You'd click on a link, and there'd be a helper app, a peer-to-peer app, that would use what's called the SMB protocol to pull the files from other peers.
Right.
Sorry, other Windows shared directories.
Right. And so it was point to point because it wasn't replicating the files across multiple at that time.
You would get the copy of the file, but you didn't automatically share it.
Right.
And that was the difference between us and Napster.
Right.
Sean Fanning was one of our users.
Right.
And the problem is that we got so popular that we would overwhelm the Windows shared directory folders that were out there.
Right.
There was too little supply and too much demand.
Right.
And so the links would get bad because 25 simultaneous connections into a Windows 95 desktop would shut it down. It would crash. And so the links would go bad. We'd have to crawl more of the internet try to find more of these directory folders. But the bottom line is that Napster, like Sean was like, we can make this better. When I get the file,
Right.
I'm going to automatically share it.
Right.
And so then demand and supply go up together.
Right.
And that was the big innovation that
Right.
Napster did on us.
Right, and then you went back and added that to the product,
Yeah,
and then
of
you did
course.
file normalization, right? So if like it knew that this was the same file,
Yeah, you would hash it. You would do things
Yeah.
like this.
and so this is in '98.
This was 90. So the company was started in 97.
Wow,
Late 97, December.
it was the first
98,
peer-to-peer
like,
software.
it was the
Amazing.
first peer-to-peer
It
software.
predated Napster by how many months?
Probably 18.
Wow. And when did you meet Sean Fanning?
I didn't meet Sean until 99
Right.
when we were on a panel together.
Wow. And at that time, people looked at the peer-to-peer space as what? How was it viewed by the industry?
It was, well, it was like underground.
Right.
So if you're talking about like 97, 98, it was underground.
People
Nobody
didn't
knew
know
what it was.
Right.
College kids did. The only way to have broadband back then was to be on a college campus.
Right.
This was a product for college kids.
Pre-DSL.
DSL may have
Maybe just
existed, but
started
it
to
was
come out.
early.
Early.
Really early.
And you probably only had 384 or something lame like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember, but it was a long time ago.
And you raised money for the company.
Yeah, we got money from a couple of interesting. We were based in LA, obviously.
Right.
We raised money from a guy named Michael Ovitz.
Right, sure. Former
And-
head of
He founded CAA,
Yep.
president of Disney, right?
a more legitimate player in the entertainment space could not be found than that.
It depends what you. It depends.
Right.
People have different opinions on that.
Right. Well, Ovitz is a polarizing character.
That's
but
correct,
regardless, was the most powerful man in Hollywood for a decade.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then another guy named Ron Burkle.
Yeah. Who is the billionaire
Yeah.
who owns or owned a supermarket chain.
Yeah.
Or still does.
He was like LBO style with Michael Milken, like
Right. Billions
and-
of billionaire.
Bought
Yeah.
Ralph's. and then
Right.
He's,
sold
I
it.
think he's still on the board of Yahoo, but maybe not anymore.
How did you meet those two individuals at the age of 22 or 23 years old, I'm guessing?
So how did I meet them? So we were at UCLA,
Right.
and we got connected to a guy named Richard Wolpert,
Yeah.
who you may remember.
Yep.
And he was like, at the time, sort of, I think he was a partner. He was like working with Ron Burkle on his VC, like
Right.
his fund essentially, which
Right.
is 99%. Like Ron Burkle is 99% limited in his own fund.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you're a billionaire, you just invest your own money.
Sure.
And so, yeah, so Wolpert was working with Ovitz and Burkle, and he sort of brought us into the fold. We met a guy named Peter Levin
Yeah. I know.
at some point,
Yeah.
and we signed an LOI with them.
Right.
It was $4 million. At the time, it was for 51% of the company.
Wow. Terms were slightly different back then.
Well, we were college kids too.
Like, what do you know?
It was an interesting mix, right? Because it was 99. Sorry, it was 98, 99, right?
Yeah.
So there was craziness, but it was LA, not Silicon Valley.
Right.
But we were college kids.
Right. So you
it was
didn't know
like-
any better.
We didn't know.
Right. And you got, oh, well, there you go.
Oh, there it is.
$10 right there. 13 minutes.
Is that really? Nobody told me these terms.
Oh, well, there you go. So you didn't know the terms of the 51% either. And they had participating preferred.
Yeah.
So you're still.
No, so it was actually not participating preferred. It was a strange deal. Remember, LA didn't know how to do Silicon Valley deals at the
Right.
time. They bought 51% common stock.
Oh, wow. That's weird.
Yeah, totally weird.
So they have they have controlling interest. They didn't understand the concept
Well,
of preferred
hold on. They
shares.
had 25.5% each, so it wasn't totally controlling.
Right.
So Ovitz had 2 board seats. Burkle had 2 board seats, and the original founders had 2 board seats.
Right. So it could get really weird real quick. No independent.
Yeah.
and
Well,
weird.
here's the thing that was interesting. So we signed an LOI for that deal.
Right.
And sort of LA style, Ovitz and company were sort of stringing us out because
Right.
what was happening is our traffic was going like this. Server costs were going through the roof. We were running out of money.
So they strung you
strung
along
it
to
out
get
to
better
try to get
terms.
better terms. I had to call Ovitz up at the end of the 30-day LOI and say, look, this deal didn't happen. We're going to have to go talk to other people.
Right. He hit the roof.
3 days
You
later.
don't say that kind of stuff to Mike Ovitz.
3 days later, we got sued
Wow.
for basically shopping the deal, which we hadn't done. But we got sued for shopping the deal. The suit hits the Wall Street Journal. Gee, I wonder how they figured that out.
Right.
And then nobody else would invest in us.
So Ovitz says, I'll show you, kid, I'll sue you. Wow, crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the suit was about. The bottom line is if Ovitz is suing us, nobody's going
Right.
to touch us.
Of course not.
And so
wow,
then,
that is a huge.
So what entrepreneur do you know that was sued by an investor to take the investor's money?
Right.
That's
and
what happened.
The investor was, so he sends a lawyer letter, whatever, and you take the money.
We had to. We had no choice.
Right.
But at least it was at the other terms that we
Well,
had
it's a great
originally
lessons to
negotiated.
learn as a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
23-year-old. 22, 23?
Yeah, I was 22, I think, at the time.
You raise the money, you start building out, the service explodes.
Yeah.
And what people don't remember at this
Well,
time
service
was,
had already been exploding.
exploding,
But yes, you're
and
correct.
the software was incredibly elegant. I remember using it, and when I was a journalist
This
at
is
the
a great
time.
example, by the way, of
Yeah.
you can have a killer product that is just killing it, and if the fundamentals of the business are like, not
business
aligned
structure,
right,
corporate structure, of course, it'll rip a company in half.
Yeah.
Well, remember, it was basically like 6 co-founders on Scour. Okay? So you want to talk about structure being completely screwy?
Right.
Right? We had 6 dudes, all computer engineers.
Right.
Right? Who were running this company.
And never worked
and
for
the guy
a
who
day
was,
in their life.
the president was decided based on who had taken a business class.
Wow. Yeah, basically.
Like we would make a decision. It could be like, should the paper clips be red or white? And it would literally take us 4 hours.
Wow. Wow. The folly of youth. So what people need to understand about this software was, this is at the time when most people didn't even know how to play encoded files. That was even in and of itself a challenge. Like people didn't have, maybe Windows Media Player had just started to come out or whatever, but this Real Player was the dominant.
No, this is all Winamp.
No. Well, Winamp and I would say probably Real Player were the two biggest.
Winamp was dominant at the
for
time.
MP3.
For MP3.
But then for video,
it was only Real Player for video. There was no other choice.
Your computer did not have the ability natively to play a video file at the time.
No.
However,
You had to like
movies,
get codecs and
you
crazy.
get codecs and all this kind of stuff. Ironically, the service had many people with movies on it. So this was the first time movies started showing up there.
That's right.
And Scour was blamed for the piracy of movies for the first time. That was a very big deal. And the service, unlike Napster, which came 18 months later, supported any file type. It
That's
could be a
right.
PDF.
You've got a good memory.
It could be a movie.
It could be a doc, it could be an image, it could be anything.
And
it was the
it was
first
everything.
multimedia search engine
Right.
plus the first peer-to-peer app. It was both.
Right. And it gets a tremendous amount of usage. People are fascinated by it, and it is the most advanced, essentially it's the most advanced piece of technology on the internet, I would say at the time,
Yep.
or at least a piece of software. This is that, remember also at the time when there's only 2 browsers out, IE 1.0 and probably Netscape 2.0 or something. And people are barely using, I think maybe Tables is
I
out.
think we're at 3 or 4.
Maybe 3 or 4.
I think we're like
But I think
Navigator
basically
3
this
or
is the
4.
time when Netscape,
It may have
the
been
way to
4,
organize
actually.
text on a page in HTML was tables. You would
Awesome.
create a table to have a
Tables.
left-hand column versus a right-hand
Divs,
column.
baby.
And you'd have divs. Like that was the only way to set up.
Give me the divs.
To have 2 columns on a web page. I mean, it's barely able to have images on it. And so lo and behold, people start taking interest in this in the Hollywood space.
Yeah.
And at some point, you get served with a lawsuit.
Yeah, we get so.
Where were you when you found out?
Okay,
you were
so
being
this is
served?
interesting. So we had a couple of guys in New York. So I think it was Dan Rodriguez, who now runs Cario, which is a healthcare IT company that's killing it, which I'm also an investor in.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember who else was there. There were 2 guys. Basically, they were doing a New York tour of. They were talking to all the music companies, basically going, look, what we know as iTunes today, we were pitching to the music companies.
Right.
Because we knew that at the end of the day, we had to work with these guys.
Yes.
So
Fair content.
We do a tour with all of the music guys in New York, like Jimmy Iovine and the whole crew, and we had great meetings.
Sure.
We're like, hey, we're gonna work together. As so many. This is the first startup that's really going to these music companies
It was so
and
new
saying,
that
look,
they weren't
let's-
afraid of it yet.
Well, they sort of were, and you'll see where this story goes. But basically, we're like, now if a startup goes, yeah, we had a great meeting with a music company, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, of course you
Like,
did.
whatever.
Yeah.
But at the
Wait for it.
time, nobody knew.
Right.
And so we had great meetings with these labels, and we go down to D.C. and we meet with a couple of senators.
Wow.
Orrin Hatch and Senator Leahy.
Yeah. Because they were very interested in
Both
peer-to-peer
music
because
related,
it's...
Yeah, well,
And
what's
technology.
hilarious is Hatch is
A musician himself.
he's a musician and a songwriter.
Yeah. There you go.
And he cares a lot about that. It's pretty hilarious.
Intellectual property. On
Yeah.
I mean, I could go. We could do stories for hours, so I'll try to cut to the chase. Bottom line: great meetings with the senators. Okay.
Feeling good.
Guy named Manus Cooney, who you may or may not remember, ultimately worked at Napster, was chief of staff for Hatch. Okay. Walking the guys down the stairs, Capitol Hill. This is when you could actually walk on the steps.
Yeah.
And says, "Hey guys, have you talked to the movie studios?" And we hadn't yet. We were actually setting those meetings up.
Right.
And we're like, no, we haven't. But we're setting those meetings up. It's going to be awesome. The music companies was great. He says, "You really should talk to the movie studios," sort of like Deep Throat style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we're like,
okay. Right.
Get on the plane. Plane's about to take off. Phones start blowing up. Jack Valenti had called a press conference for the next morning.
Whoa. Jack Valenti, president of the MPAA.
Yeah, that's right. The movie studio organization that sues people, essentially.
Protects the rights of filmmakers.
Yes, that's what I meant to be. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Be clear.
That's what I meant. And called a press conference about some lawsuit. They didn't provide a lot of details against Scour.
Oh, wow.
And we're on a plane. We can't answer. Nobody can answer. Anyways, the press conference happens. We haven't been served yet.
Wow.
So we have nothing to respond with. What
Right.
do we respond to?
Right.
We're
Yeah.
like, we don't know what they're talking about. So we look like idiots. It's a good move. I mean, they know what they're doing. The next morning, we are at this. Remember, this is 2000, and the boom is not over yet.
Right.
Next morning, we have a meeting with Tim Draper from Draper Fisher up
Sure.
in Silicon Valley. And it was me, Dan, and
At the time, one of the most powerful venture capitalists.
yeah.
And to this day,
And
still very well respected.
I mean, Skype
powerful.
and like a whole bunch
Yeah.
of other stuff, right?
Yeah.
He throws on the table, we get there, it's an 8 a.m. meeting, he throws on the table like 3 newspapers. It's like the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and like San Jose
Almost like
Merc.
a movie.
It is.
something like
it's a great
this.
movie. This is the original Social Network.
Yeah.
He throws the newspapers down, and we're on the front page of all of them, like $250 billion lawsuit against Scour, right?
$250 billion.
By like
Not
20
quarter
File.
billion.
It's
Yeah, it's
250
200. There's
per
3
file.
commas. There's
Yeah.
3 commas. Dude,
this is-
3 comma club.
So not billion, but trillion.
250 billion.
250 billion, quarter trillion. Got it.
250
Okay.
billion.
Right.
Okay? We're on the front page of all these things. It's like a crazy situation, but it's also boom days.
Right.
And he throws the newspapers on the table and he goes, "I guess the valuation just went up." And he meant it.
Yeah.
Because it was 2000.
Right. Sure. That
It
makes
was
total
like
sense.
the RIAA and MPAA had just sponsored a $50 million marketing campaign on behalf of Scour.
Right. Exactly. And so now people are downloading the software like crazy. How many millions of people are using the software at that point when you got sued? Low millions?
Yeah, I mean, probably I'm just guessing, sort of mid-single digit millions.
Yeah.
But at the time,
that
that's
was
a ton.
well.
there
There
it
we
is.
go. 28 in. That's at 23 minutes in.
Oh man, we're just getting
The
started.
record's 4. So
We're just getting started.
$250 billion lawsuit.
Quarter trillion.
$250 billion lawsuit. You're 23, 24 years old. On top of the world, most powerful venture capitalists want to invest in the company.
Yeah.
And how do you sleep at night? Like, how do you function emotionally as a young person given that disproportionate amount of insanity?
Well, we were already kind of insane, and there was a lot of crazy stuff, especially with the Ovid stuff, because they represent all these artists, right?
Right.
They represent movies. They do all of this stuff in entertainment.
Right.
They're funding the thing that is stealing from them.
Right.
Okay,
So now people.
So we had crazy stuff. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the lighthearted stories.
No, I
There's
know.
bigger, deeper, gnarlier stuff.
Yes, and we'll get into that hopefully. So now you have Ovitz, who has sued you once to be an investor, and now Ovitz has massive egg on his face.
Yeah.
And he is a pretty vindictive guy, or was at the time. I mean, it was known in Hollywood that he was like, you're taking these 5, reportedly, you're taking these 5 stars for this movie, and you're paying this price, and if you don't, you're not getting these stars ever again. Let's go, right? I mean, that was the sort of, he was gangster in that way.
He was gangster. I think
he had power.
Gangster is the appropriate term.
Right. He had power and he leveraged it.
Yeah.
Good for him. And in your case, now he has massive egg on his face because the people he represents, movie stars, directors, are saying, wait a second, you invested in this thing that is gouging our industry and is going to destroy us?
Yeah.
What does he say to you guys? Does he take ownership of the fact that he invested knowing what it was, or did he say, I didn't know what they were doing?
So basically, at some point, there was like, he pretended like he wasn't involved.
Right.
He pretended like he didn't know what was going on.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
my guys in my venture arm did that.
we would have, it wasn't even like that. It was just, we had somehow fooled him. You know.
What a D-bag move. So he sues to get in the company, won't close the deal, then sues to get in the company, and then
sort of puts distance.
Yeah, puts distance between himself. It doesn't even go to bat for you guys.
Yeah.
All right, when we get back,
I mean, I'm sure he'd claim that he went to bat for us, but yeah, no.
When we get back from commercial, I want to hear the inside story of the night you spoke at my event. The inside story of the night you spoke at my event. And somebody's calling for Tyler. Hold on, it's important.
It's Michael Ovitz.
Michael Ovitz. He cut the stream. Ovitz, nice guy. I like Michael. Maybe he's well, anyway, I want to hear also, have you ever spoken to Ovitz again?
Yes.
Okay, I want to hear that story as well.
Yes.
Now, since we're talking about...
Actually, it was Christmas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. So now that we're talking about getting sued for $250 billion, which, as you can see, is a realistic thing to happen in our industry. It might be $250 billion, $250 million, $25 million, $2.5 million, $250,000. The truth is, you're going to get sued if you do something successful in business. It happens all the time. Uber actually probably had a couple of legal letters sent to it in the history of its existence.
Oh, yeah.
It happens in business. Great people doing innovative things are a target. True or not true?
True.
And as a small business, it is your Geary, it is your humble duty to protect your shareholders by having
Badass lawyers.
And
insurance.
Insurance.
You know insurance.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yes, insurance, but also badass lawyers. And you know what?
Who are paid by the insurance companies.
Who are paid by the insurance guys. Exactly. Anybody successful is going to get sued. And you know what? People don't have to be...
I didn't even know you're going with this. It's
exactly.
amazing.
Look over my shoulder, buddy.
I see it now.
We're doing this commercial break.
It's amazing.
Trying to pay the bills here.
I feel it.
15 years later, I'm still trying to pay the bills. Hiscox is the insurance company that small businesses love and use. Tyler's using it now. He just went online, boom, boom, boom. Within 5 minutes, 10 minutes of filling out forms, he's got insurance. And it's as low as $22 a month. Buying insurance directly through Hiscox means it's quicker and it's simpler. You go to their website like any other good service should be. But hey, by the way, if you want to buy insurance from anybody else, they're going to send some dude to your place of business who's going to be like in a bad suit and he's going to give you a hard time. It's going to be like, blah, blah, blah. You're going to feel like you're talking to a used sales salesman, whatever. Hiscox, go direct, buy right from the website. That is awesome. One size does not fit all. Just answer the questions that are relevant to you and they give you a quote. In 15 minutes, have a tech business. Hiscox automatically includes copyright infringement coverage. Ding, ding, ding. They also don't overcomplicate things. Hiscox believes in transparency. All reviews, negative and positive, are posted online. Over 96% of customers say they'd recommend Hiscox to a colleague. That is ridiculous. 96% of people.
I wonder if they would have given Scour insurance.
I don't know. You guys are pretty far out there. Hey, go to hiscoxusa.com/smallbiz and get a quote. hiscoxusa.com/smallbiz and get a quote. And by the way, if you say thank you to at Hiscox, I'm going to personally thank you on Twitter. So go ahead and thank Hiscox on Twitter, yeah. And thank GoToMeeting too. I love when people go thank people on Twitter because then the sponsors are like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. Okay. So now, I was a journalist at the time running events.
Yes.
And I used to have a little thing out here I called the Digital Coast dinner or whatever, Digital Coast 100 dinner. And I would invite 100 people who either were important to my dinners. Yeah. It was pretty cool dinners. He used to come to them. Yeah. And it would be a who's who. Yeah. And Ovitz would come to them sometimes. Yeah. And I decided, hey, this guy Travis got some interesting stuff going on. I'm going. So maybe it's a month after.
We'd been sued.
Maybe a month earlier.
No, we'd already been sued when we were there.
Right. Sure. But I'm wondering how long it had been between you being sued and being there. It might have been a month or two after you got sued. Yeah,
it was 2 or 3 months, something like that.
Yeah. So I said, hey, come and do a little fireside chat. So he comes, 100, and you couldn't buy tickets to this event. It was invite only. I did it down at like Shutters or Casa Del Mar, 100 people. I picked up the tab. It was free to come. And you're going to go on stage,
I was at the, we were at the speaker's table,
Speaker's
essentially.
table, yeah, right at the front.
We're doing a fireside chat. We're about to do one.
Yeah.
And a guy, I'm like, my heart is racing right now just
It was
telling the
pretty
story.
scary.
One of Michael Ovitz's, I mean, for lack of a better term, I don't know whether to call him a thug or
Goon.
his
Heavy.
his dude.
His weight.
I'm not sure if I should mention names. I'll
Right,
think
whatever.
about that.
No, just Tony. Vinny Bag of Donuts. It's fine.
I think his name was Peter.
Peter. Interesting. So he comes.
Yeah, he comes sort
says,
of
"Hey."
leans over my shoulder
Wow.
and basically tells me about how certain people in the industry have worked very hard to get where they're at.
Wow.
And that
They don't need you.
they really, those people would definitely prefer that, some schmuck like me doesn't take them down. Right?
Wow.
And basically my life and my sort of physical, I don't know how to call it, but basically
Your well-being.
my well-being, my physical well-being and life were essentially threatened
Wow.
at that table.
Physical threat, like a life,
Like I'm going,
you might wind up in a ditch.
yeah, there's an alley in the back.
Right.
If you this up, you're going to get very familiar with it.
Wow.
But done in a much more.
Give him a pass
I think
on
we
that one.
you're gonna pass on that one.
like
I'm gonna pay it.
Yeah. all right.
I can't deliver that message as well as it was delivered to me that night, whispered over my ear from this guy named Peter.
Wow, this guy Peter threatened your life on behalf of Michael Ovitz. Holy cow.
And so
I think this is story of the year. This is the best story in 180 episodes of This Week in Startups. This is literally the best story ever told. And there have been some great stories told in this program.
How many minutes before you're supposed to go on stage?
probably 10 or 15.
Yeah. So he
And
gets on stage.
So Dan Rodriguez and myself are going on stage, right? And so here's what happened. That happened.
You're sitting at the table, and this is like a guy walks up to your table and leans over your shoulder and just
Gives you the message.
Yeah.
wow.
Because he knows he's going to get on stage and this is going to be written about the next day.
Because somebody on stage had just said, so coming up, we have a keynote.
Hey,
We're not-
he
We're
knows.
having dinner. Jason's at the table.
Yeah, I'm at the table.
Jason's doing the fireside chat.
It's my event.
Right.
It was like one of my dinners, and there's a fireside chat after dinner, and we would interview people in the industry. John Perry Barlow did one, he did one, Sky Dayton did one. It was just all different people in the industry doing interesting work. But you literally get threatened. Then I remember you came on stage, and you looked pale. And I started asking him questions, and he's 23 at the time, 24. 23 or 24. And he's shaking. I remember him it was yesterday. He's like shaking. I'm
I
like,
like to think I was smooth and collected.
no,
but maybe I wasn't.
You were clearly scared, and I was like, I think Travis might have a breakdown up here. And so I started to I pull, as an interviewer, I can recognize it. I pulled back on the questions, and I was like, so let's just talk about innovation in the industry, because I didn't want to keep probing about the lawsuit and stuff, because I could tell I was afraid you might start crying.
There was lawsuit. I'd like to see video to see.
I wish I had this on video.
I was totally money in
I
this
don't think
interview,
I
but
videotaped
maybe
these.
not.
No, I thought you were about to cry.
That's
you were
amazing.
emotionally frazzled.
So what happened was,
I mean, you took the threat seriously.
so he did that. I basically acted tough to this guy. Said, yeah, whatever, But the minute after that, I sort of go into a cold sweat.
Sure.
About 10 minutes later, I try to collect myself. We go on stage, and okay, how are we going to position this? How are we going to take truth and sort of lean it and bend it the way these guys need, but without compromising our integrity? It was a tricky situation.
Well, I mean, just to give you some context of what was going on at that time, according to reports, Ovitz and Ante Pellicano, this was a whole thing. He had private investigators working for him, people. This Ante Pellicano guy was doing some really.
If you called one of Ovitz or one of his guys, and you're calling from a cell phone, he's like, "Are you calling from a cell phone?" And you're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Get on a landline."
34 minutes, we're in for 40.
It happened again.
I'm going to have to pay for
Does this
for
upset your audience, by the way?
No, they love it. They love it. They think it's hysterical. Right. So, I mean, but the problem is, the whole history of the swear jar is, we have to it takes post-production now to edit out, because Steve Jobs doesn't like cursing. So you get your iTunes, you get explicit. For Steve Jobs, it's like he's got
So
kids.
instead of it's Fanny.
That's $5. You're
That's
in for
fine.
$50.
That's fine.
Jesus.
It's all right.
All right. So anyway, what happens to the
Steve.
company? You're basically, the company is sued into oblivion. Is that?
So, well, here's the thing. When we went up to your fireside chat, we had been sued, But what we did is we had maybe a week before, which made this very timely event, is we had declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, we were still operating, but Chapter 11 basically stays litigation, so this lawsuit basically goes away. It gets handled by a bankruptcy court in a matter of weeks instead of years.
Wow.
The copyright guys don't want copyright law determined in a bankruptcy court in 2 weeks. So we're in this this is the middle of the process. So basically what we did was we settled with them for $1 million cash. Suit goes away, we turn the technology off, we sell the company for $10 million in a bankruptcy court.
Wow. Who bought it? And why?
We had 3 bidders. We had Liquid Audio,
Wow.
we had Listen.com,
Wow.
and we had a company called CenterSpan.
So they wanted the peer technology.
Yeah, what they wanted to do was they wanted to create a legal Napster.
Right. And Napster had gone legal at a certain point with subscription services.
Yeah, they were
many
not
years
yet.
later.
They hadn't yet.
They hadn't, but they were trying. Everybody was trying.
Yeah, that's right.
And the only person who was able to really get the music industry to do it was
iTunes,
because he had already had the iPods out there.
But
and people don't forget. Remember
iPods weren't until 03 or 04, right?
Right.
So there was nothing.
The real player came out.
You had players, but basically,
and a player could hold 10 songs. Just so people, just to put this in context,
it wasn't
a
that
real
bad.
player could hold 10. No, the first version was
First
8
version.
megabytes, and I think it could hold 10 songs.
That's amazing.
In AM quality.
MIDI.
It was MIDI, and then you could remove the chip. It was removable chip, so people thought, well, they're just going to sell like SD cards or compact flash cards or whatever it was at the time. They just thought, oh, well, you'll just change cards per album, and then it started to hold 32 songs. And they used to sell it based on how many songs it could hold, not the megabytes. So it was like, this could hold 10 songs. This one could hold 30 songs.
Yeah.
The Rio, right? Was the first one?
Yeah.
I gave everybody one as a gift.
Which, of course, the music industry tried to sue Rio,
Right.
saying this is an illegal device.
Right.
You can't have an MP3 player. It's illegal.
It's illegal to have a player capable of playing an audio file.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And it was like, wait a second, Sony, hold on a second. Do you not have... And they basically said it doesn't have copy protection on it, so you can. They tried to sell that to stop that device. Thank God the industry fought against them and won, obviously. But they wanted to
The tech
force
industry.
They wanted to force the mini disc,
there's all
Sony
kinds
mini
of-
disc technology, which had some kind of encryption on it. So then you go on to found Scour, you go from Scour to found Red Swoosh, which was peer-to-peer technology for businesses to offload the cost of bandwidth.
The idea was take those 33 litigants that sued us. I can't remember if it was 29 or 33, but I always say 33. Take those 33 litigants that sued us and turn them into customers with the same stuff that they sued us for. It was a revenge company.
Right.
So I got these guys to pay me for the thing that they sued me for.
Pretty dope. So you go in and say, hey, you're trying to deliver movies on demand.
Yeah.
You're trying to deliver MP3s on demand. It's expensive. Use my technology.
Yeah. And so when you take the face off of peer-to-peer app, you no longer interact with it. And all it is a network stack that moves that moves data more efficiently. And so I'm trying to get them to pay me to save them money on bandwidth. So now I click on a YouTube link, and instead of the file coming from a server, the video stream, coming from a YouTube server over YouTube bandwidth, instead that video stream would come from 30 peers nearby that already have
Does
that have already
YouTube
gotten
use
that
that
video.
now, or they just screw it? Google's got enough bandwidth, they use peers?
YouTube doesn't use it, but there's a ton of companies that do.
Right. And how come this technology is it because bandwidth costs plummeted so much that we don't need them?
No, the technology took off. I mean, Akamai bought us ultimately.
Right.
I think we're on like well over 100 million desktops, maybe 150 million,
Wow.
something like this.
And so people don't even know they're using it when they have it on there.
You know, that's a network stack. Like, do you know what TCP stack sits on your machine?
Of course not. Right. So, wow. It's basically, and amazing how the innovation comes full circle.
Yeah.
So you wind up, and I think Mark invested in that company.
Mark
you had
Cuban,
met Mark back in the day.
I had, yes.
Yeah. And so you wind up getting Mark Cuban as an investor in Red Swoosh.
Yeah, but let's just be clear. I did Red Swoosh. I was about 4 or 5 years too early to market.
Right.
And so I call it blood, sweat, and ramen.
Blood, sweat, and ramen. Explain.
Yeah. What that means is when you don't pay yourself for 4 years, right? And one of those years you live at mom's house.
Wow.
You're not getting the ladies.
No.
At all.
Not much. No.
Does your
friend and you want some fish sticks or something? Your mom's calling down to the basement. No, we're good, Mom. You sure you don't want fish sticks?
That's amazing. No, you never brought the girl home to.
You never brought the girl home, right? You're like, we'll go to your place.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, you don't pay yourself. Mark floats you a couple hundred.
So what
Gs.
happens is eventually, I was in a Mark had we were on the FA list, this listserv. It's copyright and technology and how they come together.
Yeah, the faux lip, PHO. It was all the music industry people for a while. Is it still going on, the faux list?
I think so, but I've unsubscribed.
Yeah, it's too much noise.
So he went on this list and at some point was like, peer-to-peer is lame. Peer-to-peer is crap.
Right.
Something along these lines. I didn't want to put another $10 in there.
No problem.
And everybody, I mean, the list, we've been on it for years. Like, everybody knows who I am and what I'm doing. They're like, oh, snap. Like, what's he going to do?
Right.
And Mark and I went on, like, a week-long sort of, I don't want to call it a listserv flame war, but it was a flame war.
It was a debate.
Back and forth debate. You know how Mark rolls, right?
Yeah, no, Mark will tell you that's BS, and he'll be wrong sometimes.
And he's down for
and
that.
And he'll admit when he's wrong.
And when we got to the end of it.
I just had one of these with Mark over education stuff.
When we got to the end of it,
yeah.
He sent me a private email saying, I'm interested. Let me invest. Now, I was in the middle of the blood, sweat, and ramen.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't have anything for him to invest in.
Right.
And I'm like, Mark, no, we're not taking investment right now.
Right. Yeah.
But eventually, like, I ran out of money, and my last engineer left. And there were a bunch of things Mark and I were talking about. I was working on this AOL deal, and there was a lot of stuff going on. But basically, Mark was a real angel.
Right.
Like, he saved my company.
Awesome.
Basically.
Then you wind up a couple years later selling it to Akamai.
Sold it to Akamai, yeah.
Pretty good deal.
Yeah, pretty good deal. I mean, I only raised 1.7 total.
Right.
The purchase price was basically 20. It was 19 essentially.
Yeah.
The incentives on top were about 4 or 5.
Wow, great. So that we call that a double triple.
Yeah.
And that will set you up to do whatever you want in life.
Sure.
Which is enough. I always tell young entrepreneurs, if you get a chance to put a double or a triple up on the scoreboard, you take it. Score runs. That's what wins baseball games. And then you start Uber.
Right.
Now,
well,
Uber,
actually, so I did angel investing.
You did angel investing, right?
Because
you were
I was burned out. I did 10 years of P2P. I was toast.
Yeah.
I was toast.
It's like 10 years of fighting. Well, just
yeah.
give me a little bit of gray hair going on there now.
I call these swoosh hairs.
Yeah, swoosh hairs, absolutely.
Yeah.
So then, what was the founding of Uber?
Okay, so
tell me that story.
So good.
Because I think this is your billion-dollar company. I'll be totally honest. I'm an angel investor, so I'm kind of biased, but
I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's a billion-dollar company.
So let's see. So Garrett Camp, CEO of StumbleUpon, and myself. Like, basically, we were between gigs. He was still working at eBay because they had acquired StumbleUpon. He hadn't.
And by
spun it
working,
out.
you mean getting a salary?
Yeah.
And doing nothing. Yeah.
I had just left Akamai.
Right.
And we were sort of talking about ideas. What are we going to do next?
Yeah,
we were at Le Web in Paris.
Sure.
Every Le Web, I rent, a large apartment, like 4 bedrooms, and just have friends stay.
Sure.
Right. So we were just hanging out in Paris for several days. Had a bunch of friends there. And we're riffing on ideas into the late night, like every night. And, it was all sort of lifestyle type ideas.
Right.
And his was like, and we're in San Francisco, he's like, it's hard to get a freaking taxi. Like, it's hard to get a taxi in San Francisco.
Impossible.
You're stranded. Game over.
Yeah, it's not New York.
And he's like, why don't we just buy a few limos, hire a few drivers, and, have a little iPhone app where we can just push a button and a car appears in 5 minutes.
Great idea.
And, we'd of course have to have a parking garage too, right?
Yeah, of course you do.
So it started out as like, let's do this lifestyle business.
It was basically like, let's share a driver.
Yeah.
It was like a jet share. Timeshare for drivers.
And I'm like,
it's a genius idea.
He calls me at some point, like we'd been riffing on this for a while. He calls me, he's like, Travis, I've got the papers for the parking garage. I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it, because I was just very against owning the assets, hiring the drivers.
Right.
Parking garage. What I like to say is that Uber is very classy and it's very efficient.
Right.
Garrett brings the classy and elegance, like that's his part of it.
Yeah.
I bring the efficient.
The value.
I bring the gnarly math efficiency sort of aspect to the business.
Well, and the business is what?
The business is on-demand town car service. Like, I push a button on my iPhone or Android or even SMS. I push a button, and in 5 minutes, a car appears. I can see it coming to me. When it arrives, I get buzzed. Uber has a
So on the map, it shows you
a car coming to you.
a car coming to you on a Google map, basically, and it tells you how many minutes, the driver's name, and my billing information is already in there, and my phone number's in there, so I can text with the driver along the way.
And we put iPhones in all the cars, so we see the exact route it was taken. When you get to your destination, you just walk out of the car.
You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to worry about tipping. It's all included.
It's all included.
And the price is double the cost of a Lincoln Town Car? 50% more for all that convenience?
No, it's twice the price. In San Francisco, it's twice the price of a taxi. In New York, it's 1.75. In Seattle, it's 1.5.
So it's cheaper than a Lincoln Town Car normally is, even though you're getting all that convenience.
It's 90% cheaper than a Lincoln Town Car.
But
you get a Lincoln Town Car.
But shouldn't it be more expensive for all that convenience? Why is it not more expensive to get that? Because I would pay more for that service.
Totally.
Than you would pay for a normal carrier or music
If we only wanted to deal with wildly successful entrepreneurs, then you're right, we would charge more. But the point is we want to have more Ubers in a city than there are taxis. We are going to dominate every city that we go into. And so you have to find the right price point to make that happen.
So actually you want to bring Lincoln Town Car service down to the top half of taxi service.
We're going to price discriminate. So we'll have high-end products and we'll have cheaper products, right? So like you can get an iPhone that's really expensive, that has all the memory, all the action, and you can get an iPhone
Last year's. You can get the 3G
you can get 3GS, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to do the same thing.
Got it. So now the drivers, and it used to be called Uber Cab, but now it's just Uber.com, to be clear.
It's just Uber,
You showed me this, and the first thing I said to you was, are you raising money for this? I have to angel invest in this. And then I said, please come to the Open Angel Forum. And you're like, we're going to close this round. I said, just come, please, because I need to have good companies there. And it'd be a great win for me to just be able to say that you came. So I appreciate you coming. So he's giving the presentation. I don't know if you were there for this one.
Dog Catch Lab.
Yeah, Dog Catch Lab. I just write like 25 or 50, and I'm just like... now that's the new thing at the Open Angel Forum. People just write how much they want to invest, and they just hold it up on a piece of paper, like it's a muscle car auction or something. So you wind up getting a bunch of investors,
top tier angel investors.
Give us some names
at that event.
At the event,
I think
every single
4 people at the event.
Everybody wanted in. Not everybody got in.
But
I think you're the only one at the event that got in. Actually, no, there's a first round capital guy there.
Yeah, first round was there. Yeah.
Though I ultimately ended up working with Rob Hayes from first round, but they did get in.
Yeah,
so it was you and first round.
Yeah. So who are the other angels?
Oh man, so Alfred Lin, CEO of Zappos.
Wow.
Sean Fanning.
Awesome.
Man, I'm going to forget because there's so many awesome people. Mitch Kapoor. I mean, the list goes on.
You're at the point in your career where if you come up with a decent idea, forget about a great idea like this, but a decent idea, you have a line of people ready to invest, isn't it? True.
When you are a successful entrepreneur, you can get your first round of investment fairly easily.
And by fairly easily, it's done. I mean, you just meet with somebody and say, here's what I'm doing, and they'll send a check.
Yeah, and you also have people you've already made money.
Right. And so how do you know?
Like Mark wanted in, but we know how Mark rolls.
He likes a little bit of discount.
He likes a deal.
He might,
he likes a real deal.
So I'll give him a deal.
And I have no issue with that, but he,
Yeah, you're negotiating, and then, listen, he's got a certain thing. He wants a good deal. And,
I respect it.
Yeah. So now how do you know as an entrepreneur who's that successful that you can raise money at any time, at almost any valuation, if you actually have a good idea or not? Because you need to have a Mark Cuban or a Mitch Kapoor or whoever it is, or Sean Fanning say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea.
Or Jason Kalkanis.
Whatever, I'm leaving myself off that list. I'm not successful with those guys. But basically, those guys who've changed the world in a major way, you need them to validate the idea more than you need their money.
Look, if you are a successful entrepreneur, you don't need those guys, really.
You could do it yourself.
Yeah.
But the reason you're taking it is because you want them on your team, and don't you want them to tell you, this isn't a good idea, or I think it's a good idea, but X, Y, and Z? You're looking to them for some kind of validation of the idea?
I never feel that.
No?
I never feel that.
Okay.
I never feel like investors are the guys I need to validate my idea.
But it is good when they say, hey, I like the idea.
Sure, it makes your life easier.
Right. It's confirming.
Yeah. It makes your life easier, basically, but it doesn't mean it's going to win or lose.
So
how many times have you seen overhyped companies just...
Of course. It happens all the time.
Yeah, so it means it's not because I have some philosophical issue with it, that's just not how I do it.
Right. So Uber, you move from Uber taxi to Uber.
Yeah.
Because
the city of San Francisco and the state of California said shut down.
Right. Because
here's a cease and desist order, shut down.
Right. Because they don't understand that you're not using yellow cabs. They don't even research it that much.
They understand. I mean, the bottom line is that, you know, there are incumbents in any market space who have issues when new guys come in.
Right.
They lobby, you know, local government to sort of take them out.
Right.
I mean, that's the first response. That's how you initially respond.
But I mean, in terms of the livery cars, the Blacktown cars, I think they're called livery.
Livery, and it's interesting. Livery is a New York term.
Oh, it's a New York term.
We can go into it. It's very interesting.
So you have to basically decide in each market if it's going to be worth the hassle. But generally, for the Lincoln Town cars, in my experience, they already allow you to text them or email them or book them through other ways in some cases, having used some of the services.
Nobody gives you 5-minute pickups.
But nobody gives you 5-minute pickups.
I mean, and nobody gets you,
there's
like,
no
I can
law
just see the
against
car
using
coming.
your iPhone to get a Lincoln Town car.
There's not. Look, we feel like we do not
But a
go...
yellow can't pick up, right? A yellow can't be arranged, generally speaking. Is that the
yellow cab can be in San Francisco. You can dispatch a yellow cab.
You can
call. But this is a public information. If you are in San Francisco, 72% of all dispatch calls on a Saturday night to yellow cab go as no-shows. The car does not show up. Why? Because the driver who gets dispatched is on his way maybe to pick you up,
right?
And somebody flags him down. And that driver's got to feed his family.
Right. He's got to take
fill that car, butts and seats.
Right, exactly.
That's how he gets paid.
Right. He can't wait to maybe pick you up.
Yeah.
So you solve that huge problem.
Yeah.
And
it's efficiency and elegance,
I'll tell you when I realized it's going to be $1 billion company.
Well, the interesting story here is how do you respond when the city of San Francisco initially says you got to shut down? Because you've
the great thing is I've seen this before.
I was about to say,
you're like, I've seen this movie.
I'm like, oh man, I got a playbook for this.
Right,
Let's
exactly.
do this thing. I'm like when that happened, it actually for me felt like a homecoming.
Yeah.
I'm home now.
Wow, we've done something so disruptive that people are calling their lawyers.
And not just that, but it was just like that special place that like I know how to operate in this world.
This is your zone. You don't break a sweat because of this now. So you get on the phone with the lawyers, you talk to the people at City Hall, and you work it all out.
It was basically lawyers. It was writing sort of like our response to it.
Right.
We basically had a
publicly
blog post.
crafting that basically.
Well, we crafted it. It hadn't gone public yet. We knew ultimately, well, we didn't know, but we were waiting for it to go public. Arrington breaks it.
Right.
Like, I don't know, 4 or 5 days later. We had a blog post ready to go. So we're like,
post it.
We had the right thing. We got it up. And look, the city, in California, cities regulate taxis. The state regulates limos. Okay? In fact, the Public Utilities Commission, the guys who regulate your water and your power, also regulate your limos. Okay? And so the cities do not have jurisdiction really over us.
Right.
So they send us a cease and desist, but there's not much that they can really do in the state of California.
Right.
Different cities, it's different.
Right.
There's a conversation with the state about, are we Orbitz or are we American Airlines?
Right. Got it. You own and operate, or do you just...
Yeah, should we be permitted as a limo company where they take a percentage of our revenues and there's certain regulations, or are we Orbitz?
You're just sending them a customer.
Yeah.
And the truth is you're just sending them a customer.
We're sending a customer because the regulations, if you look at them, it's like, give your drivers drug and alcohol tests, inspect your equipment, insure your equipment,
right?
Do workers' comp. Like, I don't have drivers to give. Like, they're not my drivers.
They're not your drivers.
Like, I can't give them a drug and an alcohol test. Right. I can't inspect equipment. It's not mine.
They turn on their iPhone.
I can't insure it.
The driver experience is they turn on an iPhone. Yeah. They've signed up with you guys.
Yeah.
They get a call. They get rated. That's it.
Yeah, they basically get a request through the iPhone.
That's it.
And they accept or not.
Right, and you take a piece of that.
We take a piece of that.
It's pretty simple. And all the drivers I've spoken to say they love it.
Yeah.
They're making more money from it. I interview every one.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I tell them, do you know Travis? And they say, yeah, I know Travis. I had him here in New York. You actually drive in all the taxis with all the drivers or most of them?
I mean, anytime I'm getting around San Francisco or New York,
And they know you're the CEO.
A lot of times. I try to hold off, like, see what they say without it. Then they go, are you the Travis?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm Travis.
I am the Travis.
I'm the Travis.
The Travis. But it turns out that their behavior, and driver and passenger behavior, you know, on both sides of the equation can be bad at times. People are frustrated. Traveling can bring the worst out in people.
Sure.
And it's a very stressful job for the drivers. I believe that your product is making the behavior go up.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that happens is you learn the driver's name. So now he's a human.
Yeah.
You rate the driver, so the driver knows that you have some power.
Yeah.
And you know that
rates you.
The driver rates me.
Driver also rates you.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So if I'm an a-hole,
yeah,
he could just say 1 star, and then can he put a comment of why?
he doesn't have the ability to comment directly,
But he could
they
follow
send
up
us
with you.
emails and stuff like that, or
Right.
we'll ask if like somebody gets rated at 1. We're like, what happened?
Ah, really?
Yeah.
So now it's safer for the driver.
Yeah.
Because they know
A
who this
lot
person
safer
is.
for
A
the
lot
driver.
safer because we have the credit card number.
People do not understand like how unsafe it is for drivers.
Oh, they get killed. They get robbed.
like
they get
late
beaten.
night,
Sure,
you
drunk people.
etc. I mean, it's a craft
Right.
to be a good driver, and people don't necessarily
I feel
understand.
so
that.
bad for the drivers in New York. They've all been sold down. At least the taxi drivers, they've been sold down the river by their unions. They don't get. They used to have Blue Cross Blue Shield. They used to have 2 weeks vacation. They get nothing now.
It's
The whole
it's a
career's been
tricky-
destroyed.
It's a tricky situation, right? So it's like in New York with taxis, it's fixed supply.
Right.
The supply rarely, if ever, changes. If you look at a graph of the number of medallions, taxi medallions in New York for the last 60 years, it's like a flat line,
Right.
with like a little blip.
Yeah, they
at the
get a
end,
couple more. Get
but it's a
released.
flat line.
What does a medallion cost
So
in New York now? 300,000.
fixed supply, fixed pricing that has to be approved by the city.
Right.
Okay, like this is not. I mean,
A free
this-
market.
This is not a free market.
Right.
This is
Sunday
something
should be
else.
cheap, and 5 o'clock
you've
should be
got-
expensive.
You've got demand and supply issues because
You
of
guys
it.
have experimented with different pricing at different times, correct?
Yeah,
And
yes.
how has that gone? Explain it.
It's amazing.
Really? How so?
Well, look, dynamic pricing. We were really scared. We did dynamic pricing for the first time New Year's Eve. Basically, we're twice the price of a taxi. We doubled that. Why? Because we needed to secure supply. We needed to make sure there were enough cars
Right.
on the system for New Year's Eve. The only way to do that is to make sure that we're better than their alternatives for making money that night.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, we have to do what's called what I call lassoing in demand. Is that on a New Year's Eve or a Halloween or
Yeah.
a big music festival, demand just goes nuts.
Right.
And it gets to a situation where people are pushing the button and they have to do it like 20 times to get a ride.
Right.
So you raise the price to lasso in demand. This is classic economics, right?
Right.
And
So that's
you
people push the
secure
button.
supply.
They say, I'll walk.
Or they just
It's too
can't
expensive
get a
for me.
ride.
So instead of an average ride on New Year's Eve of $20, it's $40.
Yeah, so the average ride on New Year's Eve, I think, was $50.
Right. But well worth it. It's your big night.
You're not getting out. I mean, you're not getting anywhere other than walking that night.
Right. Or you're renting a limo for the night for $1,000.
That's right. $1,200. Yes.
$1,200 for the night in San Francisco
right.
if you want a limo.
Yeah.
So you're either $1,200 or with Uber, you're $200 for 4 trips.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you're covered. And
and did it work? Did people have to wait or no?
no,
You
there's-
priced it perfectly?
It was beautiful.
Wow.
And we
the
thought
drivers were happy?
drivers were really happy. I mean, they
Double.
they made a lot of money, and it was safe, and it was they did
Right,
good
because the
business.
safety is a big thing.
Yeah.
So now I look at Uber, and the thing that comes to mind, the reason, I mean, aside from investing, because
One more thing. New Year's Eve this year, we're gonna have like 8 cities.
wow.
Like,
Yeah, how many cities
it
are you
was
in now?
crazy last New Year's. We rented a place in Marina Del Rey. I had the whole team there, and like it was like lockdown, mission control.
In Marina Del Rey?
Yes.
Here?
Yes.
Oh, why here?
Because
a
we were
fun party.
working from the 23rd of December through the 2nd of January.
so
and
you
might as
figured-
well let's get a house on the beach and like
Beautiful.
And this year we're going to have 8 cities. It's
cities
going to
you're
be
up
like
to?
screens
You
everywhere.
raised a B round or an A round? What did you
we
raise?
raised an A round. It was 11.5 from Benchmark.
Wow. Bill Gurley or who?
Bill Gurley. Yeah.
Really? I was just hanging out with him this weekend.
I also spent time with Matt Kohler
Yeah. Bill's amazing. Matt's amazing. What a great friend. Why'd you pick Benchmark?
because they're the best.
Really?
Definitely.
Really? For you, pound for pound, best VC?
Pound for pound, best VC.
And Andreessen Horowitz
This is the
were
great
all-
situation that happens after your first time around or when you have a great idea is that
Why are they the
you
best?
get to choose who you work with.
It's pretty amazing.
You can like have the standard of excellence that does not get compromised. It's a beautiful thing.
Right. If you
They're
have
the
a great
best.
idea.
They're the best. It's not even a close call.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. And why did you pick them specifically? I mean, aside from them being the best.
Well, it's
You had a lot of term sheets. I know that. You had a lot of
mean-
interest.
literally
You got better terms from other people? Or did they match your best terms?
Benchmark was incredibly aggressive to keep other terms from getting on the table.
Oh, really? They just said, screw it, like, whatever.
I mean,
now, was it reported the valuation?
People could, yeah, it was reported. It was a
15
post
million?
of 60.
Post of 60. That's incredible. So you raised $10 million. Wow, for only 15% of the company.
Yeah,
20% of the
yeah,
company.
so-
18%, whatever.
Yeah, so, yeah. What
Wow,
was I going to say?
fantastic.
Benchmark made it very difficult for me to go and make the rounds. Let's put
What?
it that
Yeah,
way.
so...
I did one meeting at Benchmark. It was a full partners meeting, and they made sure I stayed in that room.
until it's done.
They basically met after the partners meeting, or after I pitched. They're still in the partners meeting.
You're in the
They
lobby.
put me in another room.
Oh, yeah.
They tell the receptionist, don't let this guy leave. And then they come and they're like, all right, let's talk about a deal.
Okay, perfect. So now, what's the future of Uber? Just 100 cities and that's it? Or is it, hey, Cosmo.com is a really interesting business. Let's start delivering ice cream.
That's interesting. So first, let's kill the transportation thing. Let's crush it, right? Let's do that big. And it means, basically I have two things when it comes to that. One is replication. Like, let's replicate to every major city in the world. It's not just US, it's everywhere. We're going to be in
You do
Europe,
have
we're going to be in
competitors
Asia.
popping up now, right? In Germany, My Taxi, whatever.
I mean, there's a couple folks out there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good idea. They're going to be competitors. And we will kill them.
Not with a great name like Uber.
That's true.
Right.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So it's replication, but then it's domination.
Right.
And that means going deep in a city, more Ubers in a city than there are taxis. Those are the
What does that mean, more Ubers?
More Ubers, more cars that are on the Uber system than there are taxis.
That's what you mean when you say Ubers, not customers, but
Oh,
more drivers. I'll tell you when I knew this was going to be a billion-dollar company. We get to, usually I take Carry, right? So for a while I was using Carry car service, which is like, is that the best or second best?
I mean, they
Music,
provide
Carry.
high quality service at a very high premium.
Right. So I've been using it. Then I look at the bill at some point, and I'm just like, you know
Bill's
what?
jacked.
I'm like, it's $130 to go from LAX to my house, and it's $30 to park in short-term parking. If I'm there if the trip's less than 4 days, it's cheaper for me to park my car in short-term parking. And I'm like, so then I start taking yellows, and I'm like, I just screw this. I'm going to be frugal, right? It's like, whatever, a little austerity measure, right? Self-imposed. So I start using the yellow cabs. I just thought, like, I'm wasting money. I have this thing about money. I have very complex relationships. I grew up poor. Anyway, so I started taking the yellows, right? And then everybody's like, you know what? You're showing up late for a meeting. Stop taking the yellows. Like there's a line sometimes. We need you to be where you need to be. It's creating a little bit of a problem. And we get to, I don't know if you were here for that, but one of the first trips to San Francisco after Uber was out, we started supporting the airport. Yeah. So I said, that's it. I'm using Uber at the airport. Yeah. Boom, I do it. Guy's like 10 minutes away. I'm like, okay, screw it. I'll use my laptop. I'll wait the 10 minutes. He comes.
We started in the taxi line for a second.
We started in the taxi line.
It was kind of crazy, and was like, wait a minute, I think Uber comes to the airport now.
Guy comes.
Because the time we were before in San Francisco, he said that we're going to start going to the airport.
It wasn't originally airport service, correct?
You could always get it. Like, you could always try.
Right.
It just rarely would happen.
So
At some point, we just got so many hundreds of cars in the city that it was like, it just spread everywhere.
You don't give them their iPhones, right? It's up to them to get them.
We give them their iPhones.
Oh, you pay for their iPhones?
Yeah.
You pay them monthly service?
Yeah.
Oh, they lease it?
It's essentially leased.
Right. How much do they have to pay for the iPhone and everything, the whole package? $50?
I mean, look, we are able to get the price down. I mean, I think it's under 40.
Oh, wow.
But not just that. Like, let's put this in the context. We have drivers making $3,000 a week.
Right.
Like,
so it's fine.
Who cares?
Who cares? Right. But
Who cares?
It is a nice thing that they don't have to think about, I got to go get an iPhone. It's like, oh, my iPhone shows up.
Well, it's one platform for us. We know what it is.
Right.
Like, we don't have like weird different 3GS versus this versus that. It's just one platform.
The guy comes up to pick us up. I'm sort of like recognize the guy, and I look. I noticed he's got a Carry folder. I said, "You a Carry driver?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I think you took me last time." He goes, "Yeah, I think I did take you last time." I take a Carry into the city. It was $50-$60.
Yeah.
And it's normally
65.
65. It's normally 140.
Yeah.
130, 140 for Carry to take me to the city. I said, I got the same driver for half the price. The literally same driver. And he was nicer to me because I was using Uber.
Because it was going into his pocket.
I see. So he keeps it back.
It's his business now.
Right.
You're now dealing with a businessman, not an employee.
And because those people didn't lock those guys down as full-time employees and made them independent contractors, that gives you access to them.
Carry has a network of drivers.
Right.
Right? Just like we have a network of drivers.
Right. So now it's like, are those guys at Carry absolutely infuriated
but
by
Carry
it?
takes a big chunk, and
They charge
it's an
twice as
old
much.
business, and they've had to really extend their margins, and they've done it through.
So are they coming to you saying, "Can we make a deal with you?" And
we haven't heard from Carry.
Right.
But
Are
there are
the other ones?
there are a lot of large, big companies that
like music, something. Are they coming to you saying, "Hey, do a deal with us?" And you're just like, "Nah, whatever."
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, look, we'll always listen to these guys and hear what they have to say. It's it's an interesting situation where there's could be an element of co-opetition, but you have to do that carefully.
You enable them and then split the fee.
Yeah, I mean, in San Francisco, it's very difficult for an existing player to come and try to play with us because we're dominating and we're getting bigger every day. there are markets where it's early enough where it could be interesting. Like it could accelerate.
Could
our
accelerate
supply.
you into the south or something, and you just
Yeah, or
jumpstart 10
accelerate
cities.
supply in some fashion.
Right.
Like New York is an interesting supply situation. So we might partner with a big.
How is New York going? Because everybody said you'd fail there.
Yeah, we're definitely not failing.
Why do people think you're going to fail?
Because they feel like there's taxis everywhere.
But if you're a black town car person, you don't take taxis because you don't like the smell
Yeah, I mean,
or the experience.
but here's maybe. I mean, but you can get in a livery car in New York and have a pretty crappy experience too.
That's true too, but it's generally not going to smell.
Okay, fair enough. Here's the bottom line: is that I talk to folks and they're like, "Well, I have options and I can get picked up and
You
all
get the
this
subway
stuff.
as a backup,
You know,
you
I've
get a
just
yellow
got
cab as a
options,
backup.
everything from like yellow cab to black car to subway to bus to whatever, right?
Right, it is designed
but
for
here,
commuters.
but here's the thing, right? I say no, there are taxis everywhere in New York. I get their defenses. I say I know there are taxis everywhere. I said, and you're talking to a New Yorker, which Jason,
Yeah.
you're a New Yorker.
Sure.
So then I would say, but tell me about those times when it's difficult to get a taxi.
Yeah.
And you talk to a New Yorker, you say it like that,
Oh, yeah.
and then the next thing you hear is like 7th Avenue between 20th and 35th from 7:15 a.m. to 8:45 a.m.
Impossible.
You're screwed.
Never. Yeah.
Tribeca, early afternoon, game over. Alphabet City, north of Houston, forget about it,
Right.
right? And they just start railing
Yeah,
off these
dead
things.
zones, dead
what
zones
you
and dead
have
times.
is you have pain points spread across the city
Right.
at different times that I think if you just added those pain points, you're talking about a $500 million market.
Right.
That's where you start. But then you talk about shift change in New York.
Right.
Then you talk about rain.
Right.
Then you talk about Brooklyn.
Right.
Like each of these problems is like $100 million problems.
And the problems Uber is designed for.
Yeah.
Now, how can you
And
get
then,
the-
of course, you got the elegance on top. So I talked to somebody.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, one of the most convenient things for me is not having to worry about having money on me.
Yeah.
Not having to go through the whole rigmarole that when you take your credit card out in a cab in New York, guys like, oh, you want to pay by credit card?
It's broken.
Oh, it's broken. And I'm like, well, I don't have cash. Well, we have to go to an ATM. I'm like, well, go ahead, take me to an ATM, but you're turning the meter off. I mean, I literally go through this dance with people.
Yeah.
I mean, the drivers in New York are hyper aggressive. Just to get yourself out of that is worth a 50% premium.
And so then the other side of this, right? So there's the pain points, of course.
Yeah.
You get stranded. But the other side of it is, there I had this friend. She was like, she was still not. She's like,
On the fence.
I go, wait a second, you've got a Louis Vuitton bag. I'm like, yeah, I remember her whole argument was that taxis are ubiquitous and they're cheap
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're everywhere. I go, why don't you get a freaking paper bag?
Yeah.
They're ubiquitous and they're cheap.
Yeah,
Why are you
plastic
carrying
bag.
your stuff in a Louis Vuitton bag? I don't understand. She's like, that's clever, nice.
Yeah, it's clever.
I said, wait a second, don't you have a deli like at the bottom of your apartment building? She goes, yeah. I said, why do you go to restaurants? I don't understand. What are you doing? You just go to the deli. It's downstairs. It's efficient. It's
Yeah.
convenient. And
Better
it's cheap.
experience.
It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the efficiency part. You got to solve a pain point, but there's the elegance and just sort of style part of it.
So tell me about the distractions. What are the things that people want you to add to Uber? Because I've been I've been on you a little bit about this. I'm trying, as an angel investor, and your friend, I don't want to tell you what to do, but I know
Why don't
for
you
me.
tell me? Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
No, this is the thing. I was always obsessed with Cosmo.
Yeah.
And Cosmo was working in certain cities. They overexpanded, and that's why they failed. Joseph Park, never heard from him again. Always thought that was very weird. Hey, Joseph Park, come on the program. And also, you're such a talented guy. Why did you just drop out? I don't understand that when talented guys drop out. You notice that? Like some guys who were in the original class of whatever, 98, 99, they did like one company, and then they went to work for other people, and they never tried again.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Joseph Park was this guy.
Some people can't
can't
keep
get
it
back
going.
up.
They only have one album.
That's it. It's like a one-hit wonder.
They're a one album guy.
Yeah, see, Joseph Park from Cosmo, he just went off the radar. Somebody's like, oh, he's working at Amazon or he's doing something else. It's like, really, you're Joseph Park. You were about to take Cosmo public. You raised $200 million, and you had Cosmo operating in 15 cities, and it was working in 6. So,
But it was, imagine what he went through.
oh my God,
Like, so
I want to hear that story.
It's like the
I don't think he got threatened to get his legs
psychological
broken.
damage can make it so that you don't want to do it
Yeah,
again.
but why does one guy get threatened to have his legs broken and keeps going and it invigorates him, and then another guy capitulates him?
Yeah,
if
I
that's
don't
what
know.
happened, I don't know what happened with Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, it can break you. I mean, it is so intense.
It can break
is.
you.
But if it doesn't break you, then it makes you unstoppable. And that's what happened
true.
to you.
Yeah, so
Now,
then when you have the good idea, you're just cracking skulls. You're
because
just
you're like, listen, I've already been on the brink. I've looked at the precipice. I've been there.
and I get a cease and desist, and I'm like,
Yeah, whatever.
I feel good.
You walk along the precipice. That's where you go for your morning stroll.
Yeah,
You're like, I like that. Well, precipice. Look, oh, there's the volcano.
Precipice.
Whatever.
All right.
No, a lot of people get pushed to the precipice.
Sure.
And they're like, I don't like this feeling.
Right.
You get pushed to the precipice, you feel normal there.
Yeah.
You feel normal, that things could explode at any point in time because you know it can.
Yeah.
And worst that happens is you start again, isn't it true?
Yeah, true.
Now, you must have had internal discussions of if we can make it push a button on Uber to get a taxi.
I love it.
Why can't it be push a button to get bagels and lox and a paper?
I mean, there's a trend in society, which I would say is a trend towards an on-demand lifestyle.
Yes.
There's a lot of things I want on demand. A lot of things.
Right. Some of those things you can't
talk about.
can't talk about. Some of those things are best left to Craigslist.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough. Some cities, it might even be legal what you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
We're a global company.
Right.
And it's not saying we're going there, but
in
whatever.
Amsterdam, push your button, get weed. Push your button, get a prostitute.
Okay. So
Assuming
I
you're not
think
gonna
your
push your button
instincts,
for those
the bottom
things.
line is that your instincts are pretty solid.
Right.
Is that when you have the logistics fabric
Yes.
underneath it, and you have, we're a math company. I have a whole division in my company called the math department.
Right.
Right? Like, we have PhDs, we have a computational neuroscientist, a rocket scientist, a nuclear physicist, like crunching numbers so that when you push the button, the car is right frickin' next to you because we knew you were going to push it.
Wow.
Or somebody was.
Yeah, precognition.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of doing the math, taking the market you have, and then once you have San Francisco and you have that driver, there's no reason that driver couldn't do an errand for you.
Or, maybe not that driver in particular.
But maybe somebody on a scooter.
Again, when we price discriminate, we have all different types of cars and different kinds of fleets.
Yes.
Like, again, once you have that liquidity,
Yes.
and once you have that,
and by liquidity, I mean you have the Uber app on my phone, and I know how to press it.
and we have access to the supply.
I saw something in France that was pretty fascinating. When I was coming from the airport, they have a service where a motorcycle will pick you up.
Yes.
You know about this?
Yeah, of course.
This is the most. I am such a Francophile now. I was shopping there.
That's interesting.
I've become a total Francophile.
That's
I'm
interesting.
down with the socialism.
I don't believe you.
You know what? These things of socialism I like. Like I love this mandated the mandated sales twice a year, and
Oh, that's hilarious.
yeah, and a bread line not
but
so
it's,
much.
But you like it from it's like a quirky novelty.
Yes. I don't think I could.
If you
pay
were the
1%.
merchant, you'd
No.
be pissed.
Oh, absolutely. And I do not want to pay the 1% wealth tax.
And if you actually lived there and you only had a sale twice a year, that would suck.
Yes. Okay. So in France, they'll pick you up on a motorcycle.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
And they'll drive you from the airport, splitting traffic because it's such a pain in the ass to get from
amazing.
Charles de Gaulle.
It's amazing.
I'm going to do this next time just for the fun of it if I don't have a roller.
Look, we will launch in Paris. Oh. I want motorcycles on there.
Yeah. I mean, how beautiful would it be to have a motorcycle fleet? But that's something you could innovate into. I mean, I don't know what the insurance would be, but if you could get somebody. Now, everybody's talking about Airbnb for taxis.
Sure.
This is a crazy idea to have some random person pick you up. And also, would it be illegal?
It'd be illegal.
Yeah, it would be just straight up illegal.
Yeah, well, unless the driver had a license, what's called a TCP license in California.
Got it.
And he was insured.
Right.
So if you can solve getting people these licenses, which is not hard to do, it's actually quite straightforward, but really it's the insurance problem.
And the insurance becomes big, expensive.
The insurance is $500-600 a month.
Right. And
so you better
loaning
be
your
making
car,
enough money to make up for that.
Right. So Airbnb, renting out your couch, not that big of a deal because you don't need to have insurance.
But there's still some things in Airbnb that, it's an illegal, like in certain areas, is a legal hotel operation, but it still happens.
Right.
Right? This gets...
You don't want to get into that kind of business.
We'll see. I mean, the bottom line is that we try to go into a city and we try to be totally legitimately legal.
Right. There's no reason to just sit there and be under the waiting for the bomb to drop. Right?
I mean, we have a reputation system, but ultimately, if somebody is a good driver, even if it's sort of like Airbnb style, they ultimately, if they're making real money, they're just going to be good at what they do. They'll end up having a town car.
Yeah, you don't need this extra capacity issue like you do for couches and guest houses, right? I mean, there's enough cab drivers around to service the populace.
We'll see.
Oh, you think there needs to be more?
Well, look, I mean, we're going to get to a point in San Francisco where there's no more cars.
People won't have cars.
There's no more. No, what I mean is there's no more town cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Because you're increasing demand that much.
yeah, we're just expansive.
Right.
And so then.
So who loses in that? The bus? Bicycles?
Look,
Who's losing? The cabs? Or is it all new demand?
It's expansive.
Right.
But I remember it's fixed supply. Right. So really, what's happening is people are losing now.
Right.
And when we roll out, then people lose less. Right.
So what do you think would be, aside from the motorcycle thing, what do you think would be the perfect natural extension of the service? Like, what's your on a personal level? What would be your favorite thing to add to the service? Not saying you're going to do it, but what would be your personal level?
I mean, like, I just want stuff brought to me, right? Like whatever I need right now. So I think Cosmos are very interesting.
Right.
Or like you could go, so Cosmos like, give me what I need right now. Like just get it for me, get it to me.
Right.
But there's maybe one that's even more focused, you could say, like delivery of food as an example.
Right. So here, give me my farmer's market box.
Or, you like to eat at a restaurant. They don't do delivery.
So now you're doing that
We have liquidity in cars.
Right.
So we can make that really interesting.
Right.
I'm not saying we do it. I'm just saying like
that would be your number one.
This is like an interesting
extension.
It's just an interesting thing to think about
Right.
while we're going and taking care of the transportation.
That'd be one of my favorite extensions, which is they do have this like dine out service here in LA where like the restaurants that refuse to deliver use that.
Yeah.
And they just put $10 on it, or 10% or $15.
I mean, there's ways to do it.
We use it all.
There's a lot of interesting algorithms to make that efficient. There's something called the traveling salesman problem that we would need to be really rocking.
Tell me that.
So let's say you had like, here's the classic computer science problem. 15 cities, you're a traveling salesman. You're starting at this city, you want to end up at this city, and you want to go to those 15 cities in the shortest distance possible. I don't know where it is exactly, maybe it's 15 or 20, but once you get to like 15 cities, I don't know the exact number, no supercomputer in the world can solve that problem.
Wow.
It's just the fan out on the complexity of that problem happens so fast. You can't solve that problem anymore.
Right.
It like makes chess look like child's game.
Right. Just too many paths.
It's too many paths.
Yeah.
And so basically the traveling salesman problem is not one of optimizing or getting the optimal, it's about optimizing.
Right.
And so being as efficient as you possibly can. This is what is the biggest thing in the jet industry.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, what do we do with all these empty private jets?
Yeah. We need to move them around in the most efficient way possible.
Right. And right now it's like everybody tries to make some, I mean that's always the joke about Uber, is going to be an Uber private jet service, but if you did that, that would just be a marketing thing, right?
Well, no, not necessarily. Look, the jet business, just private jet business is actually bigger than the commercial jet business.
Really?
Yeah. It's something like $30 or $40 billion a year. So the other side of this, like we talked about, okay, let's deliver some food.
Maybe.
Uber jets.
So Uber jets, I press a button and
a jet comes and picks you up off of Santa Monica Boulevard.
Wow. I like
Uber Chopper.
Uber Chopper.
So let's say you're in Midtown in New York,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Pick me up on the top
oh
of
my
this
God,
building."
I need to get to JFK ASAP.
Right.
Town car picks you up, takes you to the nearest helipad, and boom, you pop on over to JFK.
Uber Chopper will work. That would make sense because they do have that service. You could also take it to Hamptons and stuff like that. Wow, Travis, we could talk for hours, and we did. An hour and 20 minutes in.
Wow, we did an hour and 20.
We did an hour and 20, and it's one of the best episodes we've ever done. Thanks for coming in and being so honest. If you haven't tried Uber, it's coming to your city, and you can use it even if you're just...
Chicago, Boston, and D.C. in the next few months.
Wow. And
we're already Seattle,
all you need to
New
do
York,
to sign up is download
San
the
Francisco.
iPhone app.
Yeah.
And then put in your credit card information.
That's right.
You can do an Android app, or...
We have an Android app.
Oh, you have an Android app?
Yeah, and you can also use SMS if you want.
Oh,
you
use
just
SMS?
text the number, you just text your location. Like I go, corner of Santa Monica.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Santa Monica and Beverly Glen.
And it knows my phone number already, so it knows that's me?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that feature existed.
It's basically,
you got to communicate that to people.
I know. It's like command line Uber.
I would
beautiful.
prefer that.
It's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
You can text it. Do it.
Oh, Jesus.
827-222. That's the short code.
I love it. Hey, thank you to... so anyway, next time you're on vacation, just download the app and try it. I guarantee you'll have a great experience.
Or you're already in New York, Seattle,
if you're already
and San
there,
Francisco.
just use it, yeah. It's great. If you're an incredible business development person, manager, or salesperson, or developer, and you want to go work at Uber.
We are hiring lots of
know
amazing
that,
people.
yeah.
Please, we
But
actually
you only want the best people.
we only want the best. The engineers, we got that on lock. We're getting all the engineers. We need more awesome business people.
Ah, really?
Who says that?
Nobody says that. You
Bring
need
it.
people to
Launch
each city-
cities, launch cities,
manage
to
them,
manage those cities,
optimize.
biz dev, marketing,
Oh, there
sales.
you go. So if you,
I
just
mean,
email Travis.
please,
at
Travis
Uber.
at uber.com.
Awesome. Hey, Hiscox, thank you for ensuring all of us and keeping us safe from $250 billion lawsuits and everything in between. And thank you, GoToMeeting, for making all of our meetings just flawless and stable and HD. I cannot wait for that HD Faces. It is killer. We'll see you all next time on This Week in Startups.